Well, I apologize for not being with you yesterday. It was one of those marathon trips around Sacramento in in an unreliable car, but the car got us around, and hopefully it's going to get us around uh, this afternoon. Yes, I drive a 1984 Volkswagen Vanagon that I've had for at least 25 years, maybe longer. Uh, and I baby it so much, I just drive it around town. I'm the little old lady from Pasadena. Now I'm the little old man from Sacramento. But I actually had them ship it up here because I didn't. If I would have tried to drive it from Costa Mesa to Sacramento, it wouldn't have made it. And the problems I've been having with it since I've got here proves that proves that point. So keep your fingers crossed for me. Also keep your fingers crossed and keep sending the good wishes and good vibes to Constance's brother George, my only brother-in-law, and who's feeling under the weather. But with your help, we'll pull him through. So anyway, we are continuing talking about the rites of Eleusis, all drawn from the Best of the Equinox series. This is Volume 2, Dramatic Rituals. I edited the series, The Best of the Equinox, for the good folks at Wiser and put a few of my words in here too. And just I failed to read the back of it, so I'm going to share that first this morning. Magic is drama. The Equinox, in print from 1909 to 1919, was a magical journal published by Aleister Crowley and included Crowley's own AA laws, rituals and rites, reviews, and magical works by other important practitioners. Published as 10 volumes, much of the material remains out of print today. Now, for the first time since Israel Regardie's Selections Gems from the Equinox, 1974, renowned scholar and U.S. Deputy Grand Master General of the OTO, yours truly, presents readers with his own selections, The Best of the Equinox. Volume 2 brings the readers the collected works on dramatic rituals. As Crowley wrote, quote, "The object of them is almost invariably the invocation of a god, and that god conceived in more or less material and personal fashion. These rituals are therefore well suited for such persons as are capable of understanding the spirit of magic as opposed to the letter," unquote. Used with skill, dramatic ritual can trigger profound consciousness, expanding, and self-transformational experiences. And that was taken from the little pieces, one of the little pieces I'm going to read for you today. Now, this book contains more than just the 7 planetary rituals, the rites of Eleusis, but they make up the bulk of it. But there are other Crowley essays, some of them very rare and hard to find, that are included that are relative to dramatic rituals. So here's one of them. It's by Crowley. Of Dramatic Rituals. As the wheel turns to those effectual methods of invocation employed in the ancient mysteries and by certain secret bodies of initiates today, the object of them is almost invariably the invocation of a god. And that god is conceived in more or less material and personal fashion. These rituals are therefore suited for such persons as are capable of understanding the spirit of magic as opposed to the letter. One of the great advantages of them is that a large number of persons may take part, so that there is consequently more force available. But it's important that they should all be in harmony. It is well, therefore, that they should all be initiates of the same mysteries, bound by the same oaths, filled with the same aspirations. But they should not be friends, unless by accident. They should be associated only for this purpose. Such a company being prepared, the story of the gods should be dramatized by a well-skilled poet. I wonder who he's thinking of. By a well-skilled poet accustomed to this form of composition. Lengthy speeches and invocations should be avoided. And if you're familiar with much of Crowley's work, how could he possibly be referring to himself? Lengthy speeches should be avoided. Well, whatever. But action should be very full. Such ceremonies should be carefully rehearsed, but in rehearsals, care should be taken to omit the climax, which should be studied by the principal character in private. The play should be so arranged that this climax depends on him alone. By this means, one prevents the ceremony from becoming mechanical or hackneyed, and the element of surprise assists the lesser characters to get out of themselves at the supreme moment. That's really a very handy piece of advice there. By this means, one prevents the ceremony. Okay, yes, I've already done it. Following the climax, there should always be an unrehearsed ceremony, an impromptu. The most satisfactory form of this is the dance. In such ceremonies, appropriate libations may be freely used. The rite of Luna is a good example of this use. Here the climax is the music of the goddess, and the assistants remaining in silent ecstasy. After 9 rounds of libations, I might add. In the rite of Jupiter, the impromptu is the dance. In that of Saturn, long periods of silence. It will be noted that in these rites, poetry and music were largely employed, mostly already published pieces by well-known authors or composers. It would be better to write and compose especially for the ceremony. Okay, so that's a few little words about that. Now, following the body of the work, all of this is the rites. And if you want to do the rites, here's your script. Here's an essay by Crowley called The Rites of Aloysius, Their Origin and Meaning. Now, this was published in a magazine, and the magazine is called The Bystander. And it was in November of 1910. So he was advertising, okay, the rites. I think he had already performed them, and they got great reviews, or good reviews, and some great reviews. So he's writing this for the general public. So this isn't Crowley writing for magicians. This is Crowley writing for muggles who might be magicians at heart in the future. So, the rites of Eleusis. Among the various accounts that have appeared of the character of the rites of Eleusis, so-called, I find that very few people seem to understand intellectually what they were all about. It will be as well, therefore, that I make here a plain statement as to the exact nature of the rites. The ceremonies developed from very crude beginnings. The first one was in this wise. I happened to have a few friends in my room in the evening, among them the celebrated Australian violinist, Miss Leila Waddell. Now, actually, it wasn't Crowley's room. It was the room of Commander Marston. And I think Crowley is trying to respect his privacy here, so he says, it was in my room. It struck me that we might pass the time by a sort of artistic dialogue. I read a piece of poetry from one of the great classics, and she, that's Leila, replied with a piece of music suggested by my reading. I retorted with another poem, and the evening developed into a regular controversy. The others were intensely interested in this strange conflict, and in the silence of the room, spiritual enthusiasm took hold of us. So acutely that we were all intensely uplifted to the point, in some cases, of actual ecstasy, an intoxication of the same kind as that experienced by an assistant at the celebration of Mass or the performance of Parsifal, but stronger because of its naturalness and primitiveness. It was subsequently decided to try and tune everybody up to some definite prearranged emotion, and we strung together a rough ceremony in honor of Artemis. This was so successful that it even impressed persons who had always been complete skeptics and scoffers. Having been of help in private, we endeavored to produce the effects in public with greater elaboration. Under the heading, How to Write Rites Right. With regard to the genesis of the rites of Eleusis, I must explain that they did not spring fully armed from my brain Minerva-like. The actual form which my ideas took was simply a question of convenience and compromise. It was necessary to have a series of some sort, and 7 seemed to be the right number if we were going to get them done before people went away for Christmas. I might have chosen another sort of deities, but I thought those associated with the days of the week might make it easier for everybody, and certainly made it much easier for me because the correspondences of color, form, idea, number, and so on of the planets have been so well worked out. Okay. He's not mentioning Kabbalah. He's not mentioning Tree of Life. He's not mentioned the descent of consciousness or the lightning flash of the Tree of Life or any of that, okay? He said, just off the top of my head, I'm going to just arrange this by, the days of the week. 7's a nice number. It's not too many, not too few, maybe just 7. Of the way which the rituals were constructed, I must say a few words. Let us put ourselves in the position of the dramatist. Take, for example, the first ritual, that of Saturn. working on tradition just as Wagner did when he took the Old Norse saga for his world drama, we find Saturn as a black melancholy god, the devourer of his children. Ideas of night, death, black hellebore, lead, cypress, tombs, deadly nightshade, all these things have a necessary connection with Saturn in the mind of anyone who's read the classics. The first condition of this rite is, then, to make a temple, a kind of symbolic representation of the sphere of Saturn. So the representative of Saturn wears a black robe. The time is declared to be midnight, though, as a matter of fact, it was only 20 minutes past 8. This is an ordinary theatrical convention, and Masons will think of certain analogies in their own orgies. If the brethren are fed, it is, quote, on the corpses of their children, unquote, as Saturn fed on his. If they drink, it is, quote, poppy heads infused in blood, symbols of sleep and death. Saturn further represents the earth, the plane of matter, humanity bound by old age and death, humanity blindly groping after illumination and failing to get it. Under the heading, The Truth Behind the Veil. It is then the primitive darkness of humanity that is represented in this ritual. Therefore, we have the despairing cry, quote, there is no God, unquote. And as a logical result, the suicide of the high priest, for there cannot be a priest without a God. It is the blackness of the uttermost despair, and so the ritual ends. It is only in the second rite, the rite of Jupiter, who's etymologically and actually identified with the Hebrew Jehovah, that light breaks. But even in that rite, when the supreme power is declared, he is too exalted for anyone to approach him. It is only by the work of the divine spirit is he made manifest. And this manifestation only takes place in the God-man, in whom some call Iacchus, others Jesus. Again, an etymological and mystical identical. This doctrine appears to me to differ from the Orthodox doctrine of Christianity in one point only. It is not sectarian. I do not require my John M. Robertson to tell me that the story of the crucifixion is merely a mystery play adapted from the rites of Mithras, the rite being symbolical of a spiritual truth all nations possess knowledge of spiritual things will have incorporated in their rites under some other name. And the last subheading, deadness of dogma. If my interpretation has been erroneous, let me be shown by my error, and I will repent. But no sensible person can maintain for a moment that my interpretation is unserious or irrelevant. Unserious or irreverent. And that my chief defense, my counterattack, is that the orthodox methods of inculcating the doctrine in question have been so purely dogmatic and dull that they have lost their vital force. Without art, truth becomes falsehood. Imagine anyone taking the teachings of the blue bird and pounding them into a creed and writing dull sermons about them. The unfortunate children who had to learn them would begin to hate Maeterlinck bitterly. But let the sublime truths of Christianity be once again clothed round with sweet art, with the spacious, warm heaven of her imminent wings. And there will be that true revival of religious life that everyone is blindly seeking. Wasn't that a sweet little thing to tell the Muggles? Okay, tomorrow I will continue with an essay concerning the rights of Eleusis, concerning blasphemy in general, and the rights of Eleusis in particular. Again, the book is the Best of the Equinox series, Volume 2, Dramatic Ritual by Alistair Soley. And a little bit of me in there. Okay. Continue to have a good day, everyone, and be good to yourself, and be good to each other. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. Love is the law, love under will. Everything going okay? We'll see you tomorrow.